Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this morning's episode of Trending, brought to you in association with Iconic Coffee. Head over to shop.iconic.com and use the code TRENDING and you get 10% off. I struggled with that one, Rich. I apologise in advance. My hay fever is shocking today. How are you, Rich? Are you struggling as well, mate?
I'm starting to. It's been good the last couple of days, but I can feel it creeping in on my right side at the moment. Yeah, getting there.
It's brutal, mate. I was driving into work this morning and obviously cars are flying past and whatever. And I was really conscious of the fact that I'm pretty sure my nose was like streaming. I must have, but never mind. It is what it is. There's bigger problems than my nose streaming. War is all around us.
Yeah, that sounds like Christmas #1, doesn't it?
It does sound like a Christmas #1, and it might be our Christmas #1 if we don't refuse to comply with it. So, your first story is related to the UK, but obviously it's much bigger than just the UK.
Yeah, it is. And I'm actually in the UK this time doing a UK story. UK yet to commit to NATO plan for rising defence spending. No money for the winter fuel bill and anything like that, but we can rise to. And to be fair to Keir Starmer, he hasn't done it yet, but 3.5% of the annual GDP they want to. Mark Rutte is urging the UK to up their defence. And we know that by defence, it's not defence, it's a attack funding, isn't it? Britain has still not committed to increasing defence spending to 3.5% of the GDP by the mid-2030s. There's that year again. But it says the mid-2030s, so maybe they're just getting a little bit, I think we need to kick the can down the road a bit. At this month's NATO summit, in line with proposals from the Alliance Secretary, Mark Rutte. The bit that really made me laugh, as you're going to hear later with Iran, the NATO chief warned that Russia could be ready to attack a member of the alliance within 5 years.
Evidence it's just for that, Mark?
Evidence, Mark? Trust me, 5 years' time, you'll forget about it in a week, like we've forgot about like all sorts that's happened. There was a killing outside the Israeli embassy a few days ago, 2 weeks ago? No one's talking about that.
No. Well, Mark Rutte he was the Prime Minister of the Netherlands, who played a crucial role in getting my dad banned from Europe. So he's a good guy, because Dad was supposed to speak at a peace rally, an anti-war rally, and is therefore a danger. Whereas Mark Rutte is now head of NATO, pushing for more weapons and funding of war. I don't know who's a bigger danger, Rich. To be honest, mate.
I don't know. Well, Rutte means something else where I come from. So basically, Russia's going to attack us within 5 years. He said that if the UK was not prepared to increase defence budgets to 3.5% figure, you'd had better learn to speak Russian.
Goodness
me. Isn't it? Like, the rhetoric that these guys come out with is absolute nonsense. They're lunatics. But 5 years made me laugh. So obviously, we're gearing into this kind of, let's try and pull us back into the EU. Not that we ever really left, because how dare you get what you voted for with democracy and stuff. So earlier on Wednesday, the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves from Accounts, reiterated commitments given in February by Starmer to increase defence budget spending to 2.6, so they want even more now, of GDP by April 2027. The amounts, I suppose, the actual positives that will still be here by then, they think. Anyway, that amounts to cash total of 71 billion, an increase of 10.7 billion. And they can't pay for the winter fuel bill for old people who are freezing to death. It's mad, isn't it? 60.3 billion they want by 2045 for killing people in different countries.
Well, to be honest, if we're going to try and put a positive spin on it, which I try and do, by 2027... and even by the mid-2030s, given how much our country is being destroyed by Starmer's government, 3.5% of GDP, will probably be about 40 quid.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you know what I mean? You've done yourself in there. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, they'll obviously up the spending because, you know, war is peace and freedom is slavery and all that kind of stuff. What I think is that they probably need more consent from the British public in order to do that, and I don't think they're there yet. Like, obviously, Rutte, as you're quoting there, he's mentioning Russia again. They tried to pull that nonsense on us in the UK over the last sort of week or two. No one's buying it. You can see that they're probably going to try and do it with Iran as well, but no one's really buying it. And so I think that's maybe why, as you use the term, kicking the can down the road a little bit. I think they will increase the spending, but I don't think they feel like they can get away with it just yet, because although there is a big attack on Muslims and a demonization of the Islamic world for sure, which obviously they need for us to, consent to a war with Iran. But also, I think the British public look and go, well, we haven't got any issues with Iran. They're not Iranian grooming gangs. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of like I think they're struggling with that at the moment. But it makes you wonder, Rich, whether they're going to bring something on to try and manufacture that consent. Maybe a false flag wouldn't shock me, mate.
Well, they don't need kind of like we saw in 9/11, didn't we? Got to go over there to Afghanistan and get what was his name? Living in the cave. Got his name now.
Bin Laden.
Bin Laden. He was his mate. Yeah, George Bush's Junior's mate. Anyway, they had to go and get him from Afghanistan, and suddenly they're going to Iraq. Like, what's all this about? Oh, they're just
Sat-nav.
It doesn't matter. It's in that general ballpark, isn't it? That's what they kind of go for.
Yeah, well, exactly, because they don't think Americans would know, and they wouldn't. Do you remember that footage of someone going onto the streets and asking a bunch of Americans whether we should attack Agrabah? And they were all saying, yeah, we should go in, and it's the fictional land from Aladdin, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Bonkers, mate. Right, talking of bonkers, Rich. Israel considering military action against Iran in days without US support. Right. God almighty. Right, Israel isn't considering a military attack on Iran. It's been planning it for decades. There's a difference. There's a notable difference. I would like to say as well, Rich, and I'll put this out there just so there's no confusion. I do not stand with Israel whatsoever. 7 days a week, twice on Sundays, and for all the tea in China, I do not stand with Israel. Netanyahu's government, this gaggle of messianic lunatics that are trying to enact some bullshit biblical prophecy of the end of times, is certifiable. It's what it is. It's certifiably insane. I don't want any part of it. In fact, if my choice was stand with Israel or a wheelchair, I'd choose the latter. And if people have a problem with that, then that's absolutely fine. I care about humanity, and therefore these utter lunatics pushing us into a global conflict that will lead to the deaths of millions of people ain't really my bag, to be honest. Now, I keep seeing a lot of rhetoric in terms of having to stand with Israel and support Israel. You see it all the time. Israel is a bulwark that stands between Europe and the Islamic hordes and the Islamification of the Western world. I'm sorry, mate, but if you're parroting that line, you are either knowingly disingenuous or you're an idiot. It's one or the other. Israel is considering taking military action against Iran in the coming days without American support. Yeah, but it's not without American support, though, is it, Rich? Because they know America's going to come in behind them. Israel is like that gobby, the little weedy gobshite in your group of friends that I don't know why we're friends with anyway, that comes out on a night out and picks fights after a couple of Jack Daniels, safe in the knowledge that he knows that his bigger mates are going to have his back. The reports come as US President Donald Trump is said to be in advanced discussions with Iran about a diplomatic deal. We can't have a diplomatic deal to curtail the Middle Eastern country's nuclear program. Israel is said to have become more serious about a military strike on Iran as the negotiations between Washington and Tehran appear closer. So they're looking and going, oh no, they might cut a deal that might mean no death and destruction. Well, we can't have that, possibly, because that's what we want. Now, Netanyahu, it said, he finds the potential of an agreement unacceptable. Well, of course he does, because he wants war, Rich. This isn't new either, ladies and gentlemen. This isn't, October 7th, Iran, Hezbollah. It's nothing to do with any of that stuff. He's a ghoul who's been pushing for war. He pushed for war with Iraq. And everyone talks about the WMDs and the sexed up dossier of Tony Blair and Alistair Campbell, and you'd be right to talk about that. Where did the idea of Saddam having WMDs come from? Benjamin Netanyahu, mate. Is where it started. He's called for the destruction of Syria. That went well for everyone in the region. He called for destruction of Libya. That went well for everyone in the region. How are the slave markets? Are they all right? Yeah, they're doing well, mate. Awesome. Yeah, making an absolute killing, mate. And he's been calling for war with Iran since the 80s. And if you don't believe me, listen to him for yourself.
If you take away the Soviet Union and its chief proxy, the PLO, international terrorism would collapse. If you take out Saddam's regime, I guarantee you that it will have enormous positive reverberations on the region. Obviously, we'd like to see a regime change, at least I would, in Iran, just as I would like to see in Iraq. The question now is a practical question. What is the best place to proceed? It's not a question of whether Iraq's regime should be taken out, but when should it be taken out? It's not a question of whether you'd like to see a regime change in Iran, but how do it...
Are there any other nations that you would recommend that the United States launch preemptive attacks upon at this point?
The answer is categorically yes. The two nations that are vying, competing with each other, who will be the first to achieve nuclear weapons, is Iraq and Iran. But a third nation, by the way, is Libya as well. Libya is trying very rapidly to build an atomic bomb capability. So you have here now three nations.
All stand together to stop Iran's march of conquest, subjugation, and terror. I know that no matter on which side of the aisle you sit, you stand with Israel.
Do you know what I mean, Rich? It's insane, mate, isn't it?
Yeah, I watched that clip this morning, and it's like the rhetoric going on and on and on. I mean, what to do with him? He shouldn't really be allowed on the telly. Shouldn't really be allowed in a Starbucks or any coffee shop or out of his house. Possibly put him in a cell would be really good. He's an absolute lunatic. And as we'll see later, this whole messianic stuff that we've been banging on about for nearly 2 years now, well, I have, it's, and you as well, it's the central part to what they're doing. And they think that people think it's too out there for people. It's for politics, greed and money. It's part of it, but it's absolutely not all of it. And if they don't even believe it, they're certainly using this rhetoric and this agenda to push this through. So Iran is the next bit. And it's just like, how long are you going to go on and doing this? They don't need the US support right now because the US just provided them with a shed load of money in February of this year. So they've got the money. We're not going to support you. Well, we'll just use the money that you gave us a few months back then.
You already have supported us.
It's a done deal. It's ridiculous. They don't need to actually be there. What he means by that is not sending in the troops from America to be killed alongside them. But the funding is there. And where does that funding come? It comes from the taxpayer, the US taxpayer, to fund foreign wars. And that's only going to come back on the West, obviously. Now, they've got no evidence that Iran have got chemical weapons or weapons of mass destruction. They lied about it then, they'll lie about it now. But they've got them as well.
Yeah, not only have they got nuclear weapons, which was a conspiracy theory 20 years ago, then suddenly they sort of quietly admitted it, but they've also got something called the Samson option, which means if we're going down, we'll take the whole world with us. They're freaking lunatics, mate, aren't they? Lunatics.
It's a suicide squad. It's absolute suicide. It's absurd that anyone's even like listening to him. And this is the world we live in. So, it doesn't matter whether the Americans go right now or not. It'll come to your door if they carry on this way because you're funding it. So, either way, you're involved. Your president's got you involved, deeply involved with this lunatic agenda, as you say. And people need to wake up to it. I was talking about it on the Sam Tripoli's podcast last night. People aren't aware of how they're caught up in the LA riots, which is basically accept Palantir for us.
Exactly. And we'll come to that later as well. But there is a positive story you've got about the region and about the Israeli army.
Yeah, this was really good to see because this is the way I believe. And I think the way you believe is the way that it can stop. Israeli army officers refuse to serve in unnecessary eternal war in Gaza. IDF officers refuse to do it. People refuse to do it. It's as very simple as that. We're not going. And you're not coming here. And we're not going to fight each other. We're not going to meet even halfway. In a letter to Netanyahu, 41 signatories say government's orders are clearly illegal. It took long enough to figure that out. And hostages have been given death sentences. Of course they have, because they were funded to do that. Israel's government is issuing clearly illegal orders that must not be obeyed, a group of Israeli military intelligence officers have said, announcing they will no longer participate in combat operations in Gaza. Now, this was the really important bit where he mentioned basically what we've been talking about all along and why they're doing it. And it's to do with the Messianic guys. And for them to talk about this and actually say it, I thought was absolutely fantastic. I just need to find it. Sorry, guys. I had it earlier.
No, you're right though, Rich. Just while you're finding it, this is how we win, and you can apply that to all all sides. And when I say win, I mean not go to war and die, because that to me is a win, is just refuse to fight. When they say, you know, oh yeah, we're going to war with Russia. No, we're not. We're going to war with Iran. No, we're not. Well, we're putting British troops on the ground. No, we're not. And that's how it has to be. It has to come. This is the thing. Everyone's looking for a savior, whether it be Donald Trump or Nigel Farage or Keir Starmer, if you're mental. But it's not about those people. Those people all work for the same team fundamentally. Different factions maybe of the same team, but they don't work for you. And so it comes down to us. This is what you hear all the time. You've got no solutions. Got all the solutions, mate. You are the solution. Just say no. Not having it. Not doing it.
It is. It's exactly that. Just don't go. Just don't participate. If you refuse to be a participant in your own doom, really. And so this is what they said. Israel government is issuing clearly illegal orders that must not be obeyed. A group of Israeli intelligence officers have said, announcing they will no longer participate in operations in Gaza. The letter, which was shared online on Tuesday, said the group would refuse to take part in a war designed to preserve the rule of Netanyahu and appease anti-democratic and messianic elements in his government. Even the IDF are calling it out now.
So right. And this is the thing, Rich. They've been protesting against Netanyahu long before October 7th over corruption charges. Because let's have it right. Like, Netanyahu's a lunatic, but he's also as bent as a six-bob note. He is. But you don't see these protests. Now, there's hundreds and hundreds, sometimes thousands of people on the streets of Tel Aviv protesting against the war in Gaza, walking around holding pictures of murdered Palestinian children. That's not making it on the media because it doesn't fit the narrative. Because the narrative is, this is a Jewish state, Jewish people. If you call out the actions of the Israeli state, you are therefore anti-Semitic, you are therefore attacking the Jewish people. Well, then that doesn't fit with, well, there's thousands of them protesting and agreeing with what we're saying. So they have to hide that from the public view and public discourse. And another thing that ties into it, because if you're saying these people are refusing to fight, so in Israel they're still enlisted, they still have national service, and lots of people refuse to fight, and it doesn't end well for them. They're not treated well as a result of refusing to fight in the IDF. Now, Orthodox Jews often refuse to fight. The ultra Orthodox Jews, they refuse to fight. It's against their belief system. We're not going into the West Bank, and we're not going to Gaza. We're not going to fight. We're not going to enlist. Now, you can find some footage. In fact, I'll try and find some footage of how they're dealt with by the Israeli forces. They use water cannons and rubber bullets on their own people simply because they don't want to go and kill some Palestinian kids. And it's brave, brave for them to stand up.
It's a really good point, that, actually, because when you're talking about the Orthodox Jews, these guys who are the Sabbateans, Chabad lot, but in my opinion, personal opinion, after researching this for a good year and a half, pretend to be Orthodox. They're not. They're Sabbatean. So they put a bad name to these Orthodox, being an Orthodox Jew. But as you just rightly said, most of them, or nearly all of them, who are truly Orthodox, don't want to go and fight because they see these biblical prophecies playing out on their own. They don't want to force God's hand. Where these guys that are behind Netanyahu, it's a really important distinction, are not acting with any in the faith that they are talking about. They're actually forcing the God's hand. That Zionism was the same. Well, it wasn't when it originally started, but it became that. And there's two different things there. So they're acting in bad faith in the name of something that they don't represent at all. And as you've just rightly pointed out, those of the Orthodox faith, truly Orthodox faith, do not want to do this. They do believe in the biblical prophecies, but they believe that God will play them out as in his own manner. And that hopefully wouldn't mean murdering, genociding the whole of the Gaza Strip. But these guys aren't what they say they are, in my opinion.
No, I think you're right. And then this is the thing. This is the Zionism. If you're anti-Zionist, you're anti-Semitic. Mate, Zionism is a political ideology which was created in the 1800s by an Austrian bloke. I think I can call it out. That's fine.
Yeah,
no problem with it.
Herzl was a atheist. Didn't believe in God.
So many of them are. So many Zionists are atheists. It's honestly ridiculous. Right, talking of ridiculous though, but moving away from war in a sense. European Union unveils international strategy pushing digital ID systems and online censorship. Isn't it amazing, right? How so many different countries, different sovereign nations and governments that all disagree on loads of stuff, all have the same idea at the same time. It's like that. Just we all came up with the same idea. So it's mad, isn't it? As a part of a broader campaign to expand its global influence in the digital era, the European Union has introduced a sweeping international digital strategy that leans heavily on centralized infrastructure, digital identity systems. I'm laughing because it's so predictable. It's ball-achingly predictable. And regulatory frameworks to raise significant questions about online freedoms and privacy. Well, they don't want us to have any. The article goes on talking about its connections into the United Nations and the World Economic Forum, because it's one big club and we're not in it, nor would I want to be. I personally think, and we've spoke about it a fair bit over the last couple of weeks, but these protests are exploding in Ireland, in Northern Ireland at the minute. Obviously, you've got the LA riots, which are spreading to different cities, exactly as we said they would, because they're orchestrated to do so. You can apply protests and stuff in the UK with this as well. Southport, for instance. It's being used to usher in the digital ID. Now, that's not to say that people aren't right to protest and people don't have legitimate concerns. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is your legitimate concerns have been manipulated to exist so that you will react in the way that you are. I'm not saying you're not justified in reacting that way, but that then will be used to usher in digital IDs. Now, I feel like I'm repeating myself, Rich, because we say it all the time. But a lot of people on the so-called right were the ones that were generally, it used to be the ones on the left, ironically, but now it's the ones on the right that are generally against digital IDs. They're against the surveillance state. They're against Big Brother. But they're also massively against mass unfiltered immigration. So if they're going to get those people to agree to the things that they were opposed to before, surveillance state, digital IDs, they need to use something that they care about, and they care about mass unfiltered immigration and the dangers that come with that. So they're using that, and they're openly doing it. The Labour Party are openly saying that we're going to, we're considering introducing digital IDs because of mass unfiltered immigration. The mass unfiltered immigration you caused. All right, okay, fine. And it's the same with the United States, and it's the same with the EU. Like I say, Rich, it's so funny how just the same with COVID. Everyone had the same idea at the same time.
Yeah, it's ludicrous. It's become a vaudeville, really, and they just weaponise everybody's careful. Yes, countdown. They ain't got much left. It's the fact is that it's quite obvious, and it is so obvious. Look at I think we mentioned this yesterday. The Palantir have just signed a $30 billion deal with ICE to provide their immigration OS. What are the chances that they, people kick back against Palantir on the right in the US, and now they've got reason to try and sell it to them again. As you just said, I think it's a hard sell. I think people have woke up to this nonsense. They're very extreme measures. They're not as subtle as they used to be because they're running out of time, which is another thing to be a plus. And also they're dropping like coded hints everywhere, like the Force. Oh God, Donald Trump used it. We're going with extreme force. Force is a Freemasonic word for the power. So they're dropping these codes in. You can see them scrambling about and panicking. So yeah, of course, they've wanted digital IDs. Your dad's been talking about this for 20 plus years. It's tied to the cashless society, tied to 15 million cities, which is tied to the internet bodies, which is tied to the Internet of All Things, which is probably tied to Solomon's Temple. And as bad as this seems, this does all connect together. It goes into every thing, but they need that system. And Palantir, I think a lot of people think Palantir is data harvesting. What they really specialize in is weaponizing that data against you.
Yeah, 100%. And it's not just in terms of weaponizing data against you, maybe with your online data and using it to blackmail or to destroy characters, but in terms of your genetic data as well, and being able to develop weapons that are specific for certain people or specific for certain groups. This is the thing when we speak about this stuff. I know you mention this all the time. People go, that's mad. They wouldn't do that. No, okay, I agree with you. It's mad, and you wouldn't do that. That doesn't mean these maniacs wouldn't. You wouldn't abuse a child, but there are hundreds upon hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people out there that do that every single day, or have done that. So don't judge other people's actions by what you're capable of yourself, because that is a tripwire. That is because
if you say it's a cult, they'll go, they'll accept it. If you say Charles Manson's capable, of course he is. He's a nutter. If you say it's a bunch of like people hiding behind a certain faith, they'll go, "Oh no, they'd never do that," or politicians would never do that. No, it's a cult. So if you frame it as a cult, what is a cult got to do? What do you expect them to do? Sacrifice everyone basically for their ideology. And this is what it is. And people need to get past this, seeing it as politicians, seeing it as a certain faith or deep in a certain faith or a mystical version of a certain faith. It's not. It goes into every aspect of the world, but at its very heart, it's an ideological cult of eugenics, which is now transhumanism, thanks to Julian Huxley.
Yeah. The thing is, people have an idea of what a serial killer is. They watch documentaries on Netflix, true life documentaries, true crime, and it's like, oh, it's Fred West and Rose West. That's what they look like. Or it's an unsuspecting bullied kid at school who lives in his mum's basement that shoots up a shopping centre. No, mate, the biggest serial killers in the world are in your governments, mate, wearing very expensive suits paid for by you. And it's that cognitive dissonance that people have. And I get it, because you don't want to admit it. You don't want to admit that you took half a day off work and lost a day's pay so you could go into a polling booth to put an X next to a serial killer. No one wants to admit that, but you kind of did.
You did,
and that's fine. It's just how we're going to react to it, and how we react to it. I think, Rich, is exactly like the story you said. The officers refused to do it, refused to fight.
Well, politics is basically a choice between Fred and Rose West, isn't it? Which one?
Yeah, which one do you want? Which one would you have?
Fred.
I think I'd choose Fred as well, and I don't know why.
I just think she was probably the mastermind behind it.
I get that impression, yeah. I mean, fortunately, it's not a choice I've got to make ever. But thank you so much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to talk to you, Rich. You're back tomorrow on your Todd, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah, it's my daughter's birthday, 7, so I'm off on a sort of family, couple of days away. 7 years old, mate. I can remember the day she was born like it was 20 minutes ago. It's mad how much they grow up.
It is.
But it's a beautiful thing to witness, I have to say. As always, Trending... I forgot my lines then. As always, Trending is brought to you in association with Iconic Coffee. If you head over to shop.iconic.com, use the code TRENDING, you get 10% off. Cheers for watching. Cheers, Rich. Catch up soon,
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.